Hi everybody, Barbara Mancuni Smith here. Today, happy weekend on this beautiful sunny Saturday in Southern California. I wanted to come here to talk to you guys about the spiritual side of disease. And I think this is a conversation that is kind of led itself based and building upon what we have discussed in the previous days about addiction, about our fears of disease, and so today we're discussing the spiritual side of disease. It's all interconnected to the conversation we've been having the past few days. So I know it was an impromptu again live, but I know you're gonna be watching the replay, and if you want, you can just subscribe to my YouTube channel. You're gonna find all the videos there, okay? Or refer friends if you want to. They don't have to even be on Facebook for that. So go on Barbara Manconi Smith, click on top right, click on the YouTube icon, and you can subscribe to my channel there. So the spiritual side of disease, I wanted to give you this beautiful background here that feels so serene and kind of get us into that space of spirituality. This came up last night. I was out for dinner and someone asked me if I am part of any organized religion. And I had to pause, and not because I didn't have the answer, but really because I wanted to formulate my thoughts and give it an answer that was, thought through, but also heartfelt. So you guys have to know that I was born and raised in Italy, and in Italy, 99% of the population is Christian by default. Christianity, Catholicism in Italy, it's more than just a religion. It's weaved into our culture. On top of that, I was born and raised in Rome, and as some of you may know, Rome also hosts within its border another city that is called Vatican City. So Vatican City is where the Pope lives, where the church, physically is. The Catholic Church resides within Rome. And on top of that, beside going to nuns and private schools, so Catholic schools, for most of my life, I also end up in University of Vatican to get my degree. And now in the University of Vatican, you have to study theology, no matter what's your religion, what's your upbringing, if you want to join the university. And the reason why I joined was because there were some very, very interesting marketing and communication degrees they were offering. And so I joined that university, but everybody has to study theology for 3 years. So just to give you a little bit about my upbringing and my connection to religion in terms of Catholicism and Christianity, because that's how I was raised. But again, if you're watching, if you're coming in, if you've been to Italy, if you are Italian, you know that religion in Italy is weaved into the tradition, into the things we eat and when we eat them and why. So it's much more than just believing in a specific God or a Bible or a book and going to church every Sunday. But I did that for a long time. So as I said, I was raised by very Catholic people. I was, I went to school with the nuns, and sorry, that's my dog. Sorry, my dog is. Sorry, my dog was having a moment. Okay, so, and then I got my first degree at University of Vatican. So, religion has been a very central part of my life. And when last night someone asked me, "Are you part of any organized religion?" I had to say no, because I no longer go to church. I no longer physically go to church. I would say I no longer, respect some of the traditional rules, so to speak, of Christianity. I don't go and confess myself, for instance. I don't believe in the original sin, and all of the things that I have a vast knowledge on and I was raised with. But I love the fact that he asked me about organized religions, because the fact that I don't anymore go to church, it does not mean that I don't believe. So today I wanted to connect to you guys the connection between the disease and how we perceive it, and illness and how we perceive it, and the spiritual aspect of this experience. If you guys have been following me in the past few days, yesterday specifically, we talked about how we are not our disease, right? We experience a disease, we experience motherhood, we experience a specific situation, but we don't identify with that. So the same is with disease, right? So the disease is an experience. Now, as an experience, there are many facets of that experience. Think about motherhood. If you're a mother or a father, right? You experience parenting, and there are many facets. There's a responsibility aspect of it. There's the joyful moments of it, and there's the dreadful moments of it, and there's the traumatic moments of it. So this is different facets of one experience, which is parenting. Okay, so with every experience, you will have many different facets. Now, if you understand that disease is not who you are, but just an experience you're going through, then you also accept in the conversation we're having that this disease has different facets. So again, as you come in and chime in, please just tell us where you're watching from. Tell us if you ever ask yourself, is there a different dimension to the disease than the one that I'm perceiving? Most of us tend to perceive. So today we're talking about the spiritual aspect of disease. Disease as an experience that we're going through that has many facets. So the first facet, the one that most of us can recognize himself or herself to is what? The fact that the moment we feel sick or we are diagnosed with so-called illness, we experience an imbalance in the body. So that's an objective statement, and that's true, and it is true. Now, the conversation we're having today is because there's so much more that physical imbalance that you're experiencing, even when you're diagnosed or you're going through a disease or illness, however you want to call it. There's a physical imbalance, that's true, and there's also a chemical imbalance that is giving you symptoms. There's many parts of our body at play for you to feel physically a certain way. Then there's emotional aspect of it, right? So you get diagnosed, or you've been going through, you've been having a long-lasting chronic illness, or maybe like we discussed yesterday, you were afraid of getting sick. And so the emotional side, it's interesting and very complex, because there's the part of us that is maybe tired of being sick, or maybe afraid of being sick, or it's traumatized. So let's say if you start coughing, right? Let's talk about the regular cold. Thank you, Michelle. It's okay, and it's gonna be pinned on top. So I hope you're gonna be able to enjoy it. But listen, if you're driving, don't watch, but listen. So the aspect of disease, right? We said disease and experience we're going through. There's a physical aspect, which is an objective one. There's an emotional aspect. The emotional aspect is the value that emotionally we give to that disease, right? So if you've been traumatized, and if you've followed the lives I've done previously, we talk about trauma as an experience that happened in the past, whether it's ours or our ancestral, like our parents, our grandparents, that was not resolved. And so it's stuck in the past, and it's disabling our ability to complete this circle, metabolize that experience, and allow us to move on and be present. As we said multiple times, trauma is the inability to be present here and now. So when we're traumatized, we're stuck in the past and we're projecting the future. Why am I saying that? Because when we talk about the emotional side of disease, often the value we attribute to that disease is also mediated by the trauma and traumas that you've experienced. So for instance, if you had COVID and it was really bad for you, right? You are traumatized if you haven't resolved and metabolized that, internalized, integrated, right? So you're still traumatized. So let's say COVID is past, but then you start feeling a little pressure on your chest. The mind brings you right away to a time in which you had COVID, you were afraid. The mind is still stuck in there, in that sense of impotence. So even though you're experiencing a simple pressure in your chest, then from an emotional perspective, you're charging that experience, not based on the what is, but based on the learning of the past and the fear of the past, and you're immediately projecting in the future that whatever that is that you're experiencing, that pressure in the chest, a little cough, could then develop into something that could be really harmful or that you have experienced before. Does it make sense? So we're talking about the different facets of disease. Today specifically, we're gonna kind of zoom into the spiritual aspect of disease, but we start naming the first one, which is the most obvious, the physical aspect, the physical imbalance that you experience when you are not in balance and you're having the experience of illness. The second is the emotional one. But again, the emotional aspect of disease is always mediated. It's not an objective one, meaning if you injure your leg, you injure your leg. If your leg is broken, it's broken. It's an objective statement, right? It may hurt, that's also objective. Now, the value you attribute to that injury, it's not an objective one. So we go from the objective realm, which is the leg is broken, or I have a cold, or I have COVID. This is an objective situation, physically objective, to the emotional aspect of it, that again becomes right away non-objective anymore. Because the emotional aspect of that disease has everything to do with your experiences, other experiences you've had in the past, experiences that have traumatized you, you have not resolved. So thinking about COVID, for instance, everyone has gone through COVID in their own way. Now, the virus was the same, more or less, different strains, but the virus was the same, but each person went emotionally through COVID in their own way. But even when I say in their own way, it's never an objective own way. And if you follow my previous lives, it's always a mediated, emotional way, right? So there's a lady, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but there's a lady in Italy. She was 102 when she got COVID. She was rushed to the hospital because, of course, remember, especially in Italy got it really bad at the beginning. And so she was rushed to the hospital. And based on what they told us, if there was one person that should not come out of the hospital, that for sure was a very elderly woman whose health probably was frail. And so her lungs and her immune system and all that, right? So, but sure enough, 2 days later, the lady came out of the hospital. And of course, all the media, interviews and all of that. And they asked her, so how did you do that? And she said, I know that I overcame COVID because I did not know what COVID was. You know what that means? It means that she had no pre-existing ideas, anxiety over what COVID was. I have a lot of friends, they are doctors, a lot of them are also in Italy, and they told me that a lot of people were rushed to the hospital, not so much because of the disease per se, but because of the anxiety that they start developing once they learned that they were positive with COVID. So, as we said, in the disease, there are many facets. Why? Because disease is an experience, just like everything else. It's not who you are, it's an experience, right? So if you got anything out of this week lives, get this. You are not your disease, you're experiencing the disease. You're going through the experience of disease. So if, a physical objective one, an emotional one that is 100% mediated by you, who you are, your trauma, the way you internalize your traumas, and your environment. And then there's a spiritual aspect of disease, and that's what we're talking about today. And some of you may ask, what do you mean, Barbara, a spiritual aspect of disease? Now, I started this live today referring to a question I was asked last night, which is, Barbara, are you part of any organized religion? And after pondering, I had to respond, no. But it doesn't mean I don't believe. It doesn't mean I don't have faith. And I could not believe and not have faith, because the very scientific mind, rational driven side of me cannot deny what I see in front of my eyes every single day, right? So I know there's something bigger above that has created all of this. But as I said, despite the fact that I've gone through Christianity for the majority of my life, and I actually even went into university to study theology for 3 years, and I had to do exams. Despite the fact that religion, in particular the Christian religion, the Catholic religion, but also many others I was exposed to for so many years, I've today come to the personal realization that I don't identify with any organized religions. But I am a person of faith and a person of belief. Why? Because I cannot deny this, right? So today we are discussing the spiritual side of disease, one of the many facets, but in my opinion, the most powerful one. So when you experience disease, as we said, you have physical symptoms, then you start freaking out or not, or giving values. If it's a simple cold, you're not too scared, right? Why? Because you've done it before. You have resolved, it's not a trauma anymore. But if you were in the medieval time, people would die of just a simple cold. So a simple cold wasn't as easy as today, right? But now, if you get something out of the blue like COVID and you don't know what to expect, and actually your experience is mediated by media and by people around you, then the experience of that disease, the emotional experience, is differently charged. Then there's the spiritual one. The spiritual one is about understanding our place on this earth in relationship with everything else that there is, and then from that perspective give meaning to all of our experiences, including disease. Does it make sense? I want to make sure that this is it's basically the premise of what we're discussing today. The spiritual side of the disease is understanding our role into the what is, and give value to our experience of disease from that perspective. What do I mean? I mean that yesterday we talked about the fact that we recognize that there's an innate intelligence inside of us. There is, right? This is, as I said, you cannot not believe, right? You cut yourself, you don't have to tell your body, now go or do anything. The body knows how to heal the wound. The body knows how to conceive and birth life and give life. You don't have to go to a class to learn that. You just naturally know that. Then yesterday we went even more further into the conversation that the pathogens, the microorganisms inside of you also are driven by the same innate intelligence, right? Because they do have an intelligence. Who tells the viruses and the pathogens what to do, how to replicate, how to be opportunistic, right? So they are moved by an intelligence. But yeah, so yesterday we came to the conclusion, and I hope that you guys kind of got the chance to settle that in and kind of mull over, that our relationship with pathogens is not an antagonistic one, but yet is a synergistic one. I offer you some food for thought on the idea that our overgrowth of proliferation of candida versus pathogens, bacteria, you name it, it is not caused by a breaking down of our body, but yet it is caused by the body itself signaling support because there's something that is impeding the body to do the work that it's supposed to be doing. So our proliferation of pathogens, from a chemical perspective, is absolutely the plan B and C and D that our body puts in place to do what? To keep us alive. And this is in itself is beautiful and kind of gives us a sense of the magnificence of creation. So when we talk about, so I wanted to just kind of summarize this in case you guys didn't catch my lives in the past few days. So when we talk about the spiritual side of disease, we have to understand with this idea in mind, right, that also even our pathogens are they come from the same. In fact, with many of them, we were created. And our life and our health depends on the balance between, the friendly pathogen, the friendly microorganism and the unfriendly ones. Like I said, my daughter, the bad ones and the good bugs and bad bugs. So, but even though all of them, they are part of us, come from the same source. They don't come from an evil source. And I don't know if any of you ever believe that, but in case, they don't come from an evil source, because everything that is created in nature come from one source and one source only. And here I'm going back to the spiritual side of disease and my faith, not necessarily into organized religions, but into creation, into what some people may call the universe, you name it. And this is not to take away the need, if you do have the need to belong to an organized religion, this is not even in contrast with that. But organized religion or not, you must agree that there's an innate intelligence and there's an energy, right, that moves everything that is alive today, including your pathogens. So when you understand that your pathogens are not your enemies. When you understand that even to give birth, you have to go through pain to create life. When you start to understand, and I spoke to many people with terminal illness that were able to recover, and even people who end up not recovering. There's never been one of them who told me, I wish I never got cancer. I wish I was never diagnosed with MS. They all said, I have to thank my cancer. I have to thank my Parkinson's. I would not be who I am today without them. If you heard recently, Michael J. Fox gave an interview. I think he was given an honorary Academy Award. And Michael J. Fox, if you're not familiar with him, he's been diagnosed with Parkinson's since the age of maybe 30. And now he's in his 50s. He's been living with this disease for over 20 years. And when he was diagnosed, it was at the apex of his career. It was hot in Hollywood. And it was doing well. That was his dream. That's what he thought. It was his path. But then Parkinson's come. They gave him 5 years to work, and that was it. He was not going to be able to continue to work. So he said he was in denial for this first 5 years. When he had to forcefully retire, he had to face his fears and accept his condition. And yet, when 20 years later, when he receives that award, he says that he thanks Parkinson's for his life, for the things that he was able to accomplish, learn, and grow through Parkinson that he would not able to do had he not had Parkinson. So again, if you ever talk to someone with terminal illness or any source of very major illness, they all think the disease. Nobody said, no, I wish I never had it. So why is that? Because again, when you understand what is your place on all this, you then have a different relationship. You must have a different relationship with your disease, with your illness, or with illness in general. So everything in life, and if you believe that we came onto this earth, maybe into this specific incarnation, to learn, not to be successful, not to be rich, not to be famous, not to be married, not to be a mother. We didn't come to be all these things. We came onto this earth to learn. And we learn through our experiences. And as we discussed yesterday, motherhood is an experience. Disease is an experience. Being a wife, a husband, a daughter is an experience. This is not who we are. Sorry, my dog is trying to get up. So the problem lies when we start identifying with our experiences and then we lose sense of self. So when I ask my clients, who are you? The answer is, I'm a mother. But you're not a mother. You are going through the experience of motherhood. There's something else inside of you that you're not acknowledging and addressing. That's when you see the disconnection between the self. Sorry, let me open because you guys, I'm gonna take you with me. It's gonna not let us continue this lovely conversation. So once you understand that you're disconnected, if you do identify, if you do identify yourself with your experiences, then you also understand that you identifying yourself with your disease is also not what we are supposed to be doing here. So we came onto this earth, remember, to learn, not to be. Okay? So most of the things that happen to us, that happens for us in our life, are experiences, especially the hurdles, that teach us something. So have you ever noticed, if your life was plain, never pain, never disease, never hurdles, never challenges, what would you learn? Truthfully look inside of yourself and realize, how much have I learned today, and how much of what I've learned today comes from my hurdles, from my negative experiences, even from my disease. How much have you learned? How much did your disease teach you so far? Why? So with this in mind, then we're talking today about the spirituality of disease. With this in mind, we understand that A, we don't identify with our experiences, and 2, we are on this earth to learn, not to be. So we need challenges, so to speak, to learn, because it's like we need the pain of the disease to become aware. Imagine you have never had pain, and unfortunately there's a condition where people don't feel pain, and that's lethal because they break their bones, they don't even know, right? So, but imagine if you were numb like that, you never have pain, you never pay attention. When do you pay attention? When you have pain. You're living your life, you're busy being stressed and not being yourself, being totally disconnected from the self, believing that you are a mother, you are a wife, that that's what you are your job. And then, hurts. What is this? Then you take your attention from the distracted life you're living, and you pay attention. That's why you have pain, to pay attention. Why? Because you were not paying attention. And so pain brings you in where? In the present. Oh, this hurts. What is this? Now the disconnection comes when we say, what is this? Why does it hurt? You go to a doctor, the doctor tells you you're broken, you need something outside of yourself. Or that practitioner or the medium tells you you're broken, or you need to be afraid. It's a virus, it's a pandemic, it's a whatever that is. It's coming from outside and it's out to get you. That's the disconnection. Why? Because they're also all traumatized and all disconnected. But the truth is, this hurts not because you're broken, not because you're a victim, not because you deserve it, not because you didn't pay attention to the virus, you didn't clean your food, you didn't do that. This happens because it's part of the hurdles and the opportunities that you need to go through to learn. So I'm not the first one to say, but I definitely agree wholeheartedly that every single ailment we experience, again, I want you to get familiar with the word experience. We experience things we're not our diseases. So every single illness, however you want to call it, that we experience have a root that is an emotional root. But I want to go even deeper than that, because yesterday I think we left it kind of at this. I want to go deeper than that. The emotional root is what? Is a trauma. Yes, we talked about trauma, unresolved trauma. We talked about lessons. What is trauma? Something that we experienced that we didn't resolve. We did not take the lesson out of that experience. So trauma arises. Okay? So trauma remains there, like I said yesterday, as almost like a morsel of undigested food, only that is an emotional one. And it remains there, it takes space in your body. But it remains there, and we talked about it fragmented, because the opportunity is for you to go back and piece the pieces together of that puzzle, realize what the lesson was from it, and let it go. I mentioned to you guys, I confessed to you guys that I went back to Italy in November, and I had, from a consciousness perspective, an unexpected fallout with part of my family. But so that could have been a trauma. It gave me physical ailments at the time. It could have been a physical trauma that I would just suppress because it was just painful, and leave it there to then show up in other ways down the road. But as painful as it was, the experience I went through, I was able to elaborate it, metabolize it, take a healthy distance between me, the self that I am, the divine being that I am, and that experience. Now, the experiences are not always positive, nor we should have that expectation. And especially in the so perceived negative ones, there is the opportunity to learn and then overcome and go to a higher level of consciousness. Because you guys, I don't know how you view your view of what is the meaning of life, but for me, it's about learning to open up to different level of consciousness and grow and grow and constantly grow. But you don't grow when everything is plain and everything is fine. You don't grow when you're always happy, in a sense, when you have no challenges. So you need the challenges in life as a springboard, as opportunities to understand, what does this hurt? What do I need to look at? What is this? And once you embrace it, understand it, stop fighting it and resisting it, then you get the message, and whatever that experience is does not have hold over you. So that could be a trauma with your family, like a fallout that I told you I gone through with my family in November. That could have signed me, like scar me, stay with him as an undigested emotional morsel somewhere in my body, and could continue to put me in a position of victimism that most of us assume. I'm a victim. This is happening to me. Everything happens for you. There is a negative, evil that is trying to take you down. There's one source and one source only, which is the light that we all come from, including your pathogen. And so everything happens for us. And we are where we're meant to be in every given time. So when you experience life, whether it's a betrayal, again, a betrayal is a judgment call. You can see something as a betrayal, or you can think it as the opportunity. Now, you don't have to stay with that person. You don't have to be in that situation, but don't repress it. Take the learning of it. And the learning, if anything, is to create a healthy distance between you as a self, a divine being, and that experience. If you're rejected by your family, if you're judged by your family, that has nothing to do with you. It's definitely a lot to do with them. But as divine being, this is just an experience you're going through. Internalize that. Realize where your power really lies and let things go. Let it go. Like poop it out emotionally. Like you would poop, heavy food that you're digesting. Let it go. Detox from it emotionally. So that trauma, that what could have been a trauma, because it's like an experience that it was not resolved and is stuck in the past and is now determining your future. What could have become a trauma no longer resides in your body. And again, you will go through hundreds, thousands maybe of experiences, micro experiences, big experiences that will sign you, will scar you if you let them. But instead, those are all opportunities. So I have some of you that is working with me right now and has 2 children with disabilities. She has 3 children, but 2 specifically have disabilities. She's a lovely lady. I know if she's watching. I know she will be watching at some point. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are in her situation. She's a mom of 2 grown boys, over 20s, and she's her sole caretaker. Now, she can lose herself in that experience and identify herself with them. I am the mother of 2 disabled boys. With all the egotistic victim mentality that comes with it. Why me? Why this? Why my life? I sacrificed my... Or she can find a healthy distance and realize, oh, this is not who I am. This is an experience I'm going through. And why this is fundamental? Because once you realize who you are, the divine being, and all the things that you're going through, including disease, is an experience you're going through and an opportunity, you start making different choices. And again, we are a collection of choices we made. When you wake up in the morning and you look at the person in the mirror, what you see is the collection of choices you made. Not the things that you perceive happen to you, but the collection of choices you made. So, when you realize the divine being that you are, with the divine power to create, then you separate yourself from that experience, taking it as an experience, even if it's breast cancer, and try to get to what the meaning of that experience is for you. Because remember what I said at the beginning, you're not here to be, you're here to learn, to move on different levels and stages of consciousness. We all start from a different place because we all had different experiences. I mean, I believe we all have different lives, past lives, so we don't start all at the same place, but we all have the same opportunities to learn from our experiences and move on and let them go. And when you let them go, you let breast cancer go, you let Parkinson's go, you let your loneliness go. Our perceived ideas that we're not worth it will keep us in loneliness, in isolation, either without a partner, if we so wish it, because we identify with, I'm someone that is not worthy of being loved, or with the wrong partner, thinking that that's all we deserve, that that's all we can do. Okay, so these are experiences. The moment you realize that you're not your experiences, you're a divine being, because we, again, watch all the lives I've done up to today, we are divine being, having a physical and a human experience. And as we are able to give birth, to heal a wound, to reset our systems, the same innate intelligence moves us towards something higher and higher and higher. So, and I would say personally, I believe that it moves us back to the source. And so, in a way, it's almost, we knew it all as souls. We decided to come onto this earth, onto this specific shape and form and life in this time, in the here and now. And our journey back to the source is a journey of learning and understanding, not a journey of being. Is it being a mother, being a daughter, being sick, and it's a journey of understanding through our challenges, because again, we will not understand or learn without challenges, to go back to the source. Because when I said you learn from the experience and you move up and you move up, I kept saying this, where do you move up? You move up to the source. You move up to where all is and all has been, from where we come from. There's a beautiful book called Conversation with God. If you never read it, read it. If you have children, the same author wrote a book, The Little Soul and the Sun. I read it to my daughter. It's a beautiful book. So today we're talking about the spiritual aspect of disease. With this in mind, I challenge you to look at your ailments, your disease, your imbalances. And again, this is valuable for everything else. Your condition, your job. You feel you're poor? Someone yesterday said, I'm stuck in a job that I hate to just barely survive because I have the limiting belief that if I do change job, I will not be able to survive. This woman is stuck in a box. Where is Elton there? Because again, our soul, your divine being, your inner pilot light, it's pure light. Some people would call it pure love, right? And in that space, there's a realm of possibility to manifest abundance beyond your comprehension in your wildest dream. Possibility to reverse illness, because you are not here on this earth to die of illness. You're not dying of illness. You guys, listen to this. When you die, it's because your soul has died first, and then your body follows suit. Because this experience, this not game, this process of getting the challenge and overcoming, understanding the meaning, let it go and move forward towards the source, got interfered with, got stopped, got blocked. And so you're not growing anymore. Your soul is being suffocated progressively until it dies. And when the inner pilot light goes, you go. And yes, you can see that you're going because you got cancer and you die of cancer. But truthfully, you die with cancer once your soul dies. Because if your soul was still alive and you understood the meaning of disease from a spiritual perspective as well, you understand that the disease is not there to kill you. It's there to teach you. And when you take, and you're willing to do that journey, and take the spiritual teaching of disease no longer needs to be there. They call it spontaneous remission. There's nothing spontaneous about it. This is the matrix of life. This is the meaning of life. Does it make sense, you guys? So once we understand that disease is not what they tell us it is, and why do they tell us that? Because they want to keep us in a dormant state. They want us to believe that we need them to tell us what is it that we innately already know. Because if you read that book, The Little Soul and the Sun, you know that you come from light. And you go back to light. And you have a chance in this life to learn things. And if you don't learn them in this life, if you resign that you're not going to want to do it, then you're going to hopefully learn them in the next. But again, there's no situation in which this person is unlucky, this person is not lucky. It's not like, oh, I got gypped, I got all this disease and she's fine. None of this. We all have our hurdles that we need to go through, that we've chosen personally, I believe, before we even came. We choose our family, not because it's the best family, because it gives us what we need. We don't get what we want in life. We get what we need. And it's time that you guys get on board with this and you understand it and integrate it, that you get what you need. So instead of fighting and resisting the what is, when something happens, and I'm not saying to you, right? You see that? When something happens, a pandemic, it happens. It didn't happen to you. It happened. When a disease arises, it doesn't happen. It's not happening to you. It's happening. Then start questioning the meaning. So why is this happening? And what do I need to learn from it? Because again, you're here to learn. You're not here to be. If you don't do that progress, you're not living. And at some point, your soul will die. The light will go off and you will die. And yes, people will say that you have died of cancer, but you have died with cancer, because all cancers, we have seen it. If it happens once, it can be multiplied. It can happen multiple times, can be dissolved. We've seen thousands of examples of people getting scanned with masses and people getting scanned, the mass is gone. And I'm talking about people with terminal illness. There was nothing left to do. They're open, they close them back, go home, keep your things in check because this is it for you. Mass gone. Their body works like our body. We were all created the same. That possibility in that individual, in that body, equals the possibility in yours. You know what they have in common, a lot of these people that went through so-called spontaneous remission? They stopped identifying with the disease. They realized who they were, and most of them decided that, what do I have left? 3 months, 3 weeks, 6 months? I'm gonna live the best 6 months of my life. Because another thing I said to you guys in the past few days is this delusion that we are all here to live forever. It's a delusion, right? We're all dying. So when my cancer patient comes to me and say, Barbara, am I dying? As I said, my answer is always, aren't we all? So what is it that we're chasing? The point is, what are we doing in the here and now? This is all we have, the here and now. But if you choose to live dormant, stuck in your trauma in the past, projecting the future, missing your present, which is only place in which life unfolds, heal can happen and lesson can be learned in the present. Then, yes, you will die possibly earlier, but even that, you will die when you were meant to die. So the spiritual side of disease. Today, if you go home or you go to your church tomorrow, however you spend your weekend, start meditating on this. What if everything I've been told about disease is not right and is not for my own good? What if there was an agenda for people that also themselves are traumatized? Because someone that asks the spirit if there's a virus on the knob, that's a traumatized person. That misses the major aspect of the divinity that is within each one of us, and believes that some, only some, can get information from a spirit that then can disperse this information to everybody. But you have that power because you are one and the same. We're all one and the same, and we're all tapped into that wealth of knowledge. Where do you think I'm telling you these things from? I don't go out and say that I speak to spirit, that I'm a medium or anything like this. But trust me, this is not stuff I read, but it's stuff I know. I know to be true. I know other people may know to be true. And the only way you have to know that is true is to ask yourself, whatever this crazy lady is telling me this morning, does that resonate? And even the fact that somehow I stumbled upon her live on my way to work, on my way to church, on my way to pick up my kids, maybe there's a meaning. Maybe I needed to hear this message. And does this message resonate with me? You don't have to study, to test it, to analyze it. Just feel it. Does it resonate? The innate intelligence that we so often acknowledge but we forget about is the one that is telling you if what I'm telling you is true or not. You don't have to have my letters behind my name to say, well, I guess it's true. Doesn't matter. There's a lot of PhD, MDs and all that don't get it. So it's not the letters behind my name or your name, is whether the innate intelligence inside of you find itself outside of herself and say, hi, I see you. What I'm telling you today is not something that I hold as the pillar of truth and I'm giving to you. It's something that I hope that I came through me, to you, for you, in the hope that you will wake up and find this message to be something that you've already known all along. So in essence, I'm not giving you something new. I'm giving you the opportunity to reflect on things that probably innately you already know. Which is a very different approach, mind you, from people that instead telling you, I am the source, or I get this from another source. No, you can't access that source. I'm the only one access it. And so for that, you stay under me and let me give you what you want to hear, salvation, whatever that is. This is disempowerment. It comes from people, it comes from government, from establishment, from people that has something to gain, right? So today, again, in all these lives, I have not sold you one thing, and you will not find a link to buy anything from me, because this is not why I'm here. But can you say the same for some of the people that you follow and you believe in, where you put your trust in? Do they ever send an email that doesn't have a book or a link to purchase something, a supplement, a juicer, whatever, a program or whatever that is? You guys, at some point, I've decided that I needed to send these messages out to wake you up, not to, again, give you knowledge that you don't have. If you find what I'm saying to you reasonable or resonating, it's because that part of you that has always known all the things I'm telling you is finding herself outside of herself and say, yes, hi. That is why. Not because I'm selling you or giving you anything that you don't know. But I know that outside circumstances and our, sometimes we're tired of life. We're beat up by life. And we don't want to do the effort. We just want to have a diet. We just want to have the pill that tells us, the zapper, the patches that tell us, okay, is that going to cure me? That defeats the purpose of life, guys. I want to shake you. If I had each one of you, I would just shake you and slap you and say, hey, you're not here to get help from someone outside of yourself, because this is not why you were alive, incarnated in this life today. You're here to learn. Do not miss the opportunity, because that is when your soul will die. Because it doesn't have purpose anymore. I hope you're laughing because I said I was going to slap you. I meant spiritually. Okay? So you will have a goal in this life, a job to do in this life, but it's not to try to find solutions outside of yourself. And in that, giving your power away, disempowering yourself and believing that the only way I have for salvation, and by salvation again, what is that? Physical salvation? Because you're all gonna die. So I don't know what you're looking for. Or try to die later. What is it that you try? Or escape pain? Escape. We come on this earth with pain. We are born. The first breath is painful. Our mother goes through pain to give life to us. Pain is the other side, of joy, and pain is life. And yet we have this hostile relationship with pain. Again, physical and emotional. That's why you're traumatized, because you didn't integrate the pain. You ran away from it. You stuffed it. So I go to Italy, I have a fallout with my family. I could have stuffed it because I just wanted to run away, distract myself, derail myself from the path, rather than integrate that piece and say, okay, why is this here? Or is it just coming up? Because when people get diagnosed with cancer, there is a one person that says to me, I don't know how that happened. I don't know. Every single one of you has answers. I've gone traumatized here. I lost my mother here. I lost my husband here. You all have answers. So you all know innately, right? You didn't read it in the book because your story is your story. Innately, you all know why the disease is there. And yet, you don't want to do the work, and that's your responsibility. You prefer to stuff it aside and go look for chemo, pills, diets. Where is it that I can find help here to get? And don't get me wrong. Some people do chemo. I have a friend in Italy going through ordeal of stuff, and his markers are down. is doing a lot of chemo. So obviously everybody's like, great, it's working. But is it? Depending on what you're looking for, right? So yes, markers are down and maybe he's not gonna die right now. But the reason why the cancer came to begin with has not been learned. Why? Because he's looking outside of himself for a solution when the answer was always within us. You guys, that is the spirituality of disease that I want to do for you to kind of reflect on today, right? If we agree that everything happens for a reason, this popular sentence, right? Phrase, everything happens for a reason. Your disease has a reason. Do not suppress it. Now, the reason is not to kill you, and that's how you will perceive it if you listen and tune out of yourself and tune in into what everybody else is saying. But your disease, as a reason, take the opportunity to understand the reason and grow. Then, only then, you have been living. Because that is the purpose of life. To learn, not to be, not to identify with what is happening around you. So you divorce, you're failing, you're married, you're good. Maybe you're in a marriage that is toxic, you're not good. You understand how disconnecting this is? Instead, the monk on the rock, meditating. It can rain. It might not even feel it. It's so connected. The rain is an experience he's going through, but he is steady in his ability to just be in the moment. But we're so distracted. We're so disconnected. And then disease comes to bring us back. Why? Because it hurts. And remember, when it hurts, you pay attention. Otherwise, you keep going. So the disease is your opportunity to go back on your track and continue on the path that you set for yourself before you even came onto this earth. And thank you, guys. You know, it's Saturday morning. My daughter went to the park with my husband. He's like, you coming with? I'm like, no, I got to go and say this and talk about this. And he's like, really? And I say, yes, really. So this is me not identifying myself with the role of mother and wife and understanding that although I love them all, today my truth and my soul needed to be here with you. Without the sense of guilt, oh my God, my daughter and this is this Saturday, the only time because tomorrow I have groups and this is my only day in which I don't work. This is the only time I have. But my soul said, go out and talk about it. It wasn't marketing. And again, I come from marketing. It wasn't the best time of the day from a marketing perspective. It wasn't a time where I can get you all because different time zone. 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock is technically not good. But this is what I had and this is what I had to do. So I hope that I gave you food for thought to maybe start looking at yourself, your disease, what's happening around you with different eyes. And then my job is done. And my weekend was worth it. Okay? Love you all.